we've obviously got Rachel from earlier from apologies. That's all right. Yeah, I was going to say, and Chris from NL. So after the break, we've got all those to go on a real project using nuclear energy for decarbonisation of industry. But before we do that, I'd like to open questions from the audience, please. Particularly, like we've not heard from any fusion companies yet today, so maybe there's some questions on fusion or any other areas. Okay. One of the things that I think is quite interesting, I guess, is the synergy. We talked earlier between the synergy between fission and fusion, and I've often thought about how, in an environment where fission and fusion technologies are using many of the same technologies, many of the same skill sets and such like, and effectively are in competition for other technologies such as carbon capture and storage. That collaboration is very important. And I guess I wonder if there's any reflections just on how you see the fission and fusion sector actually capturing market share together. And have you looked at in the future your commercial rollout, for example, how if the market share of fission drops to a level where the energy system is set with renewables at 100%, for example, do you see that as a potential risk that fission can't capture market share in order for yourselves to kind of come on in the future and pick up you talked about 700, we were talking near than that, I think. So have you any thoughts on that market share element perhaps, and where that leaves yourself next to the fission sector?
Well, from our perspective, we can see there are some countries which are just not going to do fission at the moment. Japan, for example, Germany. There's going to be strong restrictions on global deployment of fission technologies. Friendly countries are going to be able to get it from their friends, and unfriendly countries from their unfriends. But it's not going to be very widely deployable, so that I think creates a worldwide opportunity for fusion. The other thing that occurs to me is a lot of this thinking about AMRs, SMRs passes over to the way we're thinking of modular fusion reactors in future. I didn't say, but we're thinking of up to 500 megawatts electric for our fusion modules.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I echo your points, but I think, just reiterate thinking globally about the landscape, and especially as everyone tries to drive down costs. I don't think anyone's going to say no to more clean and cheap energy, especially with things like AI or more industrial processes, being able to grow your economy by having more available electricity. I mean, as long as we can produce it, I think people will use it. We're in a situation where we have sort of energy scarcity. If there is capacity to build excess, we should be aiming for that because it drives economic growth.
Yeah, that's right. Sustainable Development Goals recognise that and the importance of energy access. So, okay, we've bought some time. Any questions? Yeah, thank you.
I have a question for Astral. You spoke about the interest of the US for the DT technology to sort of like reduce the waste capacity that is sort of like. What's the engagement in the UK, the anything like that?
Yeah, so the NNL is very interested in fusion neutron sources. They have a sort of facility plan, I don't know if they'll allow me to say that, but
you said it now anyway.
So yeah, there's people looking at it very strongly, but I think it's a case of funding and purpose. The ideas are there, the plans are there, it's just putting the trigger on it, I think, and the appetite for it. One thing is the sort of the price of nuclear fuel has sort of increased in terms of fission fuel, so there is more of an attraction to go and try and repurpose waste and go to the waste. And there's also an angle with recycling nuclear waste to extract medical isotopes. So I showed actinium-225 as an example that's in nuclear waste. So there's a lot of reasons to start, digging in and opening up those older stores and start getting things out and playing with them. So yeah.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Chris. Thank you.
I've seen some advocates of fusion complain a little bit that the ITER project absorbed a lot of international government funding for nuclear, for fusion. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, it certainly has been true. When we started out as a business, there was a lot of feeling that anything that is not ITER is a distraction, and that's the only thing Europe or the world should do to develop fusion energy. So sort of overconfidence in one project. That's changed dramatically over the last few years, and what's come in its place is much more acceptance, diverse approaches, and public-private partnerships. So what we're seeing at the moment is a lot of governments, US, UK, Japan, are finding things to do in US and Japan's case, in addition to ITER. The UK is no longer part of ITER because it was removed from Euratom, and instead they've decided to deploy what they would have spent on Euratom on domestic fusion-related research, which we thoroughly applaud because building up that UK capability is very valuable. That may be our narrow business perspective, but I think it's great.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that decision to pull the funding inwards, develop their own sort of program. We've engaged with ITER around using our systems as calibrators, so bringing the systems inside a rectal and calibrating the diagnostics. But the timescales are like, we'll call you back in 5 years when we need the neutrons. Whereas in the UK, the attitude is let's just start building things and testing them now, which I think is great. I do applaud the UK's approach, especially with building industry around the sector as well.
Thank you very much. Another question here, please.
Andrew Nash, But I'm interested in what you were saying about dealing with legacy waste. Clearly the government is started spending and will be spending billions of pounds on the geological disposal facility. Are you saying that it is potentially possible to irrigate, or whatever the proper word is, of all that waste sitting in South Hill, that we don't need to, maybe don't need the GDF? That would be a really exciting possibility.
I don't think I can sit here and just say they need to scrap that, but I did a lot of work around because there's different classifications. You've got intermediate, medium, and high level. Definitely, you can reduce the lifetime of the high level waste. You'll still have large volumes, and I think that the issue is, I would say, it's probably more culture around the organisations that handle the nuclear waste in terms of being able to pivot and do something suddenly and say, okay, we're going to go with this track, headstrong, and try and deal with this to reduce costs. But people are listening and people are thinking about it and talking differently. I think from my perspective, I'd like there to be more of a vibrant industry around nuclear waste, with startups looking at reprocessing or extracting isotopes, just because otherwise the whole industry will left languish and will have low growth and low amounts of funding. So you can imagine there being accidents or issues, 50 years because it's such a long-term issue. So I think fostering an ecosystem would be a really good idea. It's not completely off the agenda, it's just sort of in the background at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
It's really interesting to see the different, every presentation has given us a different positive as to what they can do as an organisation. Is there any concern amongst you all that it might perhaps dilute the message when we're trying to promote the future of energy production? That because everyone is focusing on lots and lots and lots of different things, that we might not be able to comprehensively address people's concerns. Perhaps start from the vision perspective.
Okay, thanks for the question. I understand your point. I think there is a lot of organisations, and when we talk about, we're not a technology vendor, so from our perspective, I don't think that's the case in that we work with technology vendors, we work with other parts of the nuclear industry, hopefully with the aim to sort of project a single positive message. I think it's true that there's a lot of technologies out there, and I'm pretty sure that they'll work and they'll do the job. I think in terms of kind of outward-facing communication, you're probably right. There's probably some coordination and making sure that we're all saying the same thing, because we all want the same thing. So I think you're probably right. In our perspective, we like to think that we come as a partner of those organisations rather than sort of competing with each of those organisations.
Thank you, Mark.
I'd maybe, hello, yeah. I'd maybe add, it would be, I think citing's been really good to hear about from a lot of companies in terms of where they're thinking of going and thinking about the local organisations and using waste heat for industry and that sort of thing. But I'd love to, I don't know what organisation would do it, maybe the IAA or something like that, but like a big systemic analysis globally of, who needs desalination and, who has a really high price of water and who could also do with industrial heat, and then almost working backwards and saying, this technology would be really good. You could do with an SMR here, you could do with a fusion plant here, you could do with some wind and solar in the mix as well. But I don't know who would take on that huge task. But yeah.
I guess we're in we're in a competitive environment where commercial solutions will prevail, and the economically most favourable ones will come out. And I guess just my brief perspective, if I may, on the fact that we're in such a changing environment right now that we don't know how we're going to decarbonise aviation. We don't know how we're going to decarbonise road transport. Really, we've got policies that provide a direction of travel, and I think any and all options are still on the table. In most circumstances, there are some that start emerging as fixed. So I think as a nuclear sector, we have to, in my view, project that we're open to conversations about decarbonisation pathways and make people aware of those. So there's a counter to that, I think, insofar as making ourselves available. But I think it's a good point. We do spread ourselves thin.
I'd just like to add that I think it's important for the future industry. I think Andrew Storer said it at the recent NEMRC conference that it's important that we all project the same message and we don't say our technology is better than another technology, it's just different. And we're all striving for the same end goal, which is affordable energy and solutions to climate change.
Well said, thank you. Right, one more ask for questions from the audience. No, okay. Therefore, I suggest let's have.